Once the judge has been shopped, that judge issues a nationwide injunction against Trump, exerting power they don't have and usurping the power of the president, demolishing the separation of power. Look, there's a bill in the House, a bill in the Senate to take away the power of the judges in the regard I've just described. Even if it dies with a filibuster, it's incumbent upon the Supreme Court. They have the power under a law passed by Congress to strike down all of these universal injunctions and stop it. You know, even the liberal judges have complained on the Supreme Court about these district court judges exceeding their authority.
House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan plans to address these activist judges during the upcoming hearings.
Well, we're going to use every lever we have in the legislative branch. We can do legislation. We have a bill that passed out of the committee 3 weeks ago, which says when one of these judges, district judges, trial judges, issues an injunction, it doesn't apply nationwide. It'll apply only to the parties in that case in that respective jurisdiction.
A conservative writer says people that engage in so-called swatting are terrorists and should be prosecuted as such.
Swatting is defined as making a false report of an ongoing serious crime in order to elicit a response from law enforcement, such as the dispatch of a SWAT unit. It happened recently to Larry Taunton. He shared the experience with American Family Radio.
You know, it's 1 a.m. My dog Ranger would not let me go to sleep. He was agitated and trying to let me know something was going on. I get up, I draw my gun, and I look out the window. I see 3 men with AR-15s tiptoeing around on the deck of my porch. They'd come in silent, no sirens.
It turned out to be police responding to a 911 call about a reported shooting inside the home.
It is attempted murder by proxy, and by that I don't mean that the police officers themselves, were out to murder me. Rather, I mean that the individuals who are doing this, they seek at the very minimum to terrorize conservatives. But, the intent was really to kill me. And if my wife got killed, or if I had, children in the home, or police officers get killed, so much the better. These people are terrorists, and they should be prosecuted as terrorists.
I'm Chris Woodward.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty P.
The feature-length documentary Culture Warrior, Don Wildmon and the Battle for Decency, premiering November 11th, chronicles the life and ministry of Don Wildmon. It takes you through the founding of the National Federation for Decency, what has become AFA. It's a call to stand firm for righteousness and shows how that resolve can make a huge difference in our world.
If we lose this cultural war, we're going to have a hedonistic, humanistic society.
Find out more and watch the trailer at culturewarrior.movie.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildmon, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network for this Monday, March the 31st, 2025. Thanks for listening to AFR. Hope you had a nice weekend. And joining me in studio, whether they had a nice weekend or not, they're here. Ed Battagliano. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
And Fred Jackson.
Good morning, Tim.
I know you guys are hockey fellas.
Yeah.
But college basketball is having their tournament. Y'all heard of this?
Yeah, I watched some.
Okay. So
I watched the Texas Tech game, the Red Raiders, where they had a 10-point lead against Florida. I thought I was going to watch an upset, and kind of squandered it. But Florida's a good team, so.
Yeah. No, you're correct. That was against Florida. That Texas Tech came back and had that monumental comeback against Arkansas.
Yeah.
But anyway, I've got 4 of my 4 in the Final Four.
Did you?
Yeah.
I do want to let you know that as of this last Thursday, I don't know where I stand now. I was leading. We have a competition going here.
Yeah.
No bets, folks. We don't bet on it, but
right. Well, I did.
Filled out
nobody else did. But mine was through a bookie.
Oh, okay, good.
So it had nothing to do with us here at the ministry. It was something separate.
So
I'm absolutely kidding.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
save your emails and phone calls. Go ahead.
We have everyone filled out their brackets. Well, a lot of people did. And as of Thursday, I was at the top on both the men's and the women's bracket.
Now, we do ours by points, right?
Yes.
So you get points for every game you pick
Correct.
through, not necessarily just the Final Four.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I've got Duke and Houston. They'll play Saturday, and then Florida and Auburn are playing the other one on Saturday. So
Yeah.
ought to be fun.
The championship game will be on Monday.
Been some great games.
Yep.
So far.
Those are 4 really good teams.
They were the number 1 seeds.
Yes.
So I mean, they were.
So you basically picked the number 1 teams.
I did
and it paid off.
It paid off
because there were not a lot of upsets.
No.
In the tournament this time around.
All right, so I do think a couple of these players and teams need to be drug tested because I do think they are playing like superhuman.
Yeah.
Okay, Duke, the Duke Blue
I did
Devils.
not watch the Duke game.
Yeah, the Duke. They beat the Tide, beat the Crimson out of the Tide.
So it's just tied now.
Huh?
It's just the
just
Tide.
They just beat the Crimson out of them. Hey, Alabama had a great season.
Yeah.
As did Tennessee and the other teams that made it to the Sweet 16 and the final Elite 8, but only 4 teams remain: Florida, Auburn, Duke, and Houston. All right, Fred, good morning to you, my friend.
Good morning. Well, we are watching the aftermath of an absolutely huge earthquake in Myanmar. Now, if you don't know where that is, Myanmar is in the northern Indian Ocean off the Bay of Bengal on the eastern shore. On Friday, a 7.7 earthquake. In the initial reports, the death toll was very small. But what has happened, we have learned the crumbling of huge buildings has resulted in a death toll now that has climbed to more than 1,700. You may have seen pictures on the weekend of these huge buildings swaying. Some of these buildings, fairly modern, had swimming pools on the top and the water pouring out of that. Other buildings collapsed. And in parts of Myanmar, certainly the Muslim population is big. They were having Ramadan services. In over 60 mosques were either destroyed. Over 700 who were attending services in these mosques were killed. And it's not over yet. They have a lot of buildings that are completely collapsed that they're still trying to, and this is, it goes very slowly. We've seen this before in earthquakes. They expect the death toll to climb to hundreds more beyond the 1,700 that have been identified so far. It's just a horrible situation.
Well, and one of the problems I've been reading is that infrastructure has also been either destroyed or compromised. So getting in, emergency vehicles and other rescuers are having a hard time getting in to some of these areas because expressways are damaged and highways rubble in the roads. I saw, Tim, you saw, I think this morning, someone, I think Steve Jordahl showed you some of the video.
Mm-hmm.
I had seen this over the weekend. You mentioned these tall buildings swaying. The people had not just pools on the roof. Some of them had, it looked like, apartments that had a pool right outside on the side of the building with fairly substantial glass siding so nobody could, accidentally fall off. But these buildings swaying and the water starting to go back and forth, punching out these panels of glass. And on the video I saw, there were people in the pool when this started, and they managed to get out safely. But it was terrifying to watch these buildings, very, very tall, swaying.
By the way, just watching an update from Myanmar from the BBC, they say the death toll has now climbed over 2,000.
That'll continue to go up as they
is.
find people.
It is.
So you said that I've heard of that country, and I knew that it was in Asia, southeast. It's in Southeast Asia, right?
Northern part of the Indian Ocean. If you look at the Indian Ocean, then you go up into the Bay of Bengal. So you have Myanmar, and then just southeast of there is Thailand. if that helps you mark
Yeah.
that area a little bit more.
Okay. But the earthquake was.
It used to be known as Burma.
Okay.
Under the British.
But the earthquake was 7 point what?
7.7. And we had this discussion in our story meeting this morning. A lot of people don't realize that a jump, for instance, from 7.0 to 7.1 isn't a tiny jump. It is, in that Richter scale, it is an exponential increase as you go from 7.0 to 7.1, et cetera, et cetera. It gets many times worse with those small jump in numbers. So don't let the small jump fool you. It is huge when that happens. And this is 7.7, which I think Steve was telling us, because Steve is from California. If you thought the earthquake back many years ago, I guess was in the 80s, early 90s in San Francisco was bad, this is many, many, many times worse than what we saw in San Francisco.
In terms of the strength of the earthquake.
Oh, yeah. And we saw what the earthquake in San Francisco
Yeah.
did. The bridges collapsed, the buildings collapsed, et cetera, et cetera. And they're continuing to show pictures.
And I would venture to say that their building codes aren't as strict as they are here in the U.S.
Well, some of the areas of Myanmar, like Ed was talking about these, some of the buildings that you saw, people took videos, they were swaying, which they are designed to do.
Right.
Modern architecture is designed the buildings that way. But earthquakes, we live here in the Southeast, and so we're not unaccustomed to tornadoes, but we get warnings.
Right.
Right.
Earthquakes, it can be a beautiful sunny day. I've experienced this living in various parts of Canada. It can be a beautiful sunny day, and all of a sudden things begin to shake.
Yeah.
It's just like that. You don't know.
You ever been in an earthquake, Ed?
Yes.
Where?
My last year of Bible college, we were in California, Costa Mesa. My wife and I, we lived there. It was our first year of marriage, and we had a very small earthquake in California.
What's a small earthquake?
I don't even remember what it was. We could feel some trembling, and it felt like big trucks going by. But in fact, I wasn't even sure it was an earthquake. But then on the news later on, it was small. I don't remember the size of it, but
the biggest one I experienced was actually in New Brunswick, Canada, and it was the middle of the night, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and stars were all out. It was a beautiful night.
Yeah,
and we were sound asleep in bed, and it felt like somebody picked up our building and threw it up against a cement wall.
Wow.
It just rumbled and then slam. And it was so bad that our first daughter was in a crib. It moved her crib right across the whole room. It was that strong.
Good grief.
So that's one we remembered.
Yeah.
We really did.
I only remember feeling one that was like when I was like 10 years old or something like that.
Well, getting whippings from your dad doesn't count.
Yeah. Well,
as an earthquake.
It was my own personal earthquake. I'll tell you that.
Here in Mississippi?
Yeah, and this would have been, as I say, probably in the early 70s. I don't remember exactly what year, but it was a earthquake enough to feel it. And the dishes were rattling in the cupboard, and it only lasted a few seconds, but it was. I think it had to do with that New Madrid fault.
Yeah.
New Madrid. Some people call it New Madrid fault that comes down to us in Mississippi from like Illinois and Missouri and up in there, down through there. But yeah, it was just a few seconds. But it was, if you've never felt an earthquake, it was really a, sort of whoa,
Yeah, it's
like
now.
do I have an inner ear? Do I have an inner ear infection or what? What's going on here?
Right.
Anyway, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the one that I experienced was really basically just tremors. But people who've been in like you, Fred. Now you weren't standing when it happened, but people who are standing, they just describe it as just the strangest, most frightening feeling because we're all used to standing on solid ground and making your decision. they talk about fight or flight, but what do you do if the ground's shaking, if the ground's moving?
Yeah, like you said, with tornadoes, for example, I mean, you get warnings, right? Typically. Same with hurricanes. You know it's coming. But with earthquakes, it's like you're helpless.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you don't know when it's going to strike, and then where you're going to be, and what's going to fall from the.
Right.
You're going to be inside a building if the building falls down, or what?
Or up 30 floors.
Yeah, 30 floors. Yeah. All right, next story, Fred.
Well, normally special elections, off-year elections, don't draw a lot of attention, but tomorrow is Election Day, and people are watching two different states in particular, Florida and Wisconsin. In Florida, it has to do with two open congressional seats, the 6th District, which is in the Daytona Beach area, which is the district that was held by Michael Walz, who stepped aside to be President Trump's national security advisor. And the other one, that District 1, is up in the panhandle of Florida. That's the Matt Gaetz one. And of those two, the Matt Gaetz one is said to be fairly secure for the Republicans. And in both cases, in 24, the last presidential election, both districts, Republicans won handily. Democrats are focusing on District 6, the Florida's 6th congressional district, the one held by Michael Walz up until he resigned to become national security advisor. The Democrats have spent, close to $10 million in that district alone. They are hopeful they can win that, possibly, if that was to happen, or they're going to believe it's a victory if they come close. In other words, that margin of victory from 24 is lessened. And I guess the attention's being paid more so on these districts because the Republican majority in the House is so small. In fact, to that point, New York Republican Elise Stefanik, who President Trump had chosen to be his nomination for the U.S. ambassador at the UN, on Friday, President Trump announced he was withdrawing that nomination. And the reason being is that cushion for the Republicans in the House is so small that they want to keep Stefanik there for now, and they're waiting to see what happens in Florida. But Democrats are fairly confident they're going to do at least much better than they did in 24, and perhaps they're hoping in that 6th district to actually win it, take it from the Republicans.
Because the Republicans have a 218 to 213 margin in the House of Representatives.
That is.
And the problem is, if you lose 3 seats, you don't have to lose 5. All you got to do is lose 3 on the Republican side. Then the Democrats take over. They have the Speaker of the House. They decide on. They run the different.
I don't receive that.
Well, I'm just explaining why President Trump is taking such a cautious approach prior to the election.
Yeah.
With Elise Stefanik, you don't want her seat going up for a special election as she takes over at the UN. I'm sure he'll reward her once they get past this with some other, maybe put her in the UN or some other seat afterwards. But
so is President Trump going to run a third time?
He says he's serious about this. Go ahead.
Yes. Why don't we hear it from the president himself? Cut number 13.
I don't want to talk about a third term now because no matter how you look at it, we got a long time to go. We have a long time. We have almost 4 years to go. And that's a long time. But despite that, so many people are saying, you've got to run again. They love the job we're doing. Most importantly, they love the job we're doing.
So you said you were on 70.
Well, there's only one problem with that. I don't know who's going to tell him. But, well, he knows he can't run again straight up because one of the amendments to the Constitution, I've forgotten which one.
22nd.
22nd. Way to go, Ed. You know your amendments.
Well, I'm looking it up.
What's the 19th Amendment, Ed?
That gives young people the right to vote.
Huh? Yeah.
I think that's right.
What's 12? Come on. I'm gonna.
I do not know.
Okay. With President Trump, oftentimes
Women the right to vote. My bad.
Which
the 19th Amendment.
Oh, the 19th Amendment. You said what did you say?
I said young people, but that includes women.
Yeah, that's true. So, you don't know whether President Trump is, and this works great for him, to his advantage. You don't know whether he's trolling or not. By trolling, I mean he's kidding around, but he's acting serious about it. You don't know, oftentimes, which, as I say, works to his advantage. But in this case, he can't run for president again, even if he wanted to, because there's something called a constitutional amendment that prohibits an individual serving as president for 3 times.
If you've been elected twice.
Yes, and of course that goes back to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was in his 4th consecutive time as president, and I think the Congress at the time, and it became a constitutional amendment, so it was voted on, ratified by the states, wisely decided that two consecutive times wasn't, 2 times period, right?
Yes.
For an individual to be president of the United States was enough, because beyond that you start establishing too much power.
Right.
And so I think that's a good idea. It's basically the same argument for term limits.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Which is why they had to go through a constitutional process to limit the number of times a person could be elected. Now, a couple of things. You can, like Gerald Ford did after Richard Nixon resigned. It depends how much time is left in the president's term when he, resigns or dies in office. A vice president can fulfill the remainder of that term and run 2 more times. I think if you served under 2 years, you can run for the presidency 2 more times. But the 22nd Amendment, which the process was started in 1947. So this is a couple years after the conclusion of World War II. FDR died during his 4th term in the middle of the Second World War. And the process, I'm looking here, was finished. State legislatures ratified it in 1951. So that was obviously in response to the fact that FDR had won
President Trump had a unique idea here. He had a way around this.
Yeah.
He said that do we have this? Okay. He said that J.D. Vance, his VP, could run, right, be elected, and then turn the reins back over to him.
No, he can't do that. So President Trump, and again, it's sometimes it is hard to know if he's trolling.
Right.
I don't think he is, but you never can tell. He may be the most mischievous man who's ever been in office.
Well, Allison, my wife, said, you don't want to know why the left calls him a wannabe dictator? Yeah. These kinds of statements. But anyway, I think he did say that there's a long time to go and a lot to be done.
Yes.
Between now and then. I personally think he's, who knows, but I think he's just joking around.
Yeah.
But anyway, and he knows this kind of thing drives the left.
Oh, it lights him off like
right,
an M8,
and he enjoys that.
Yeah,
he enjoys watching them.
Yes, falling over themselves,
set themselves on fire,
yes,
so to speak, politically. All right, you're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, and Fred. I tell you what, let's go ahead and take our break a little early. And then Fred will, what's our next topic after we come back, Fred?
Well, the other big vote people are watching tomorrow is the Wisconsin Supreme Court, because it does have national implications.
Okay, and we'll talk about that and other topics when we get back from this time out. Yes, I'm using a basketball metaphor to describe our break right here. We're going to take a fast break, See what I did there?
Yes, I like it.
I'm just taking this stuff off the top of my head right now.
Well,
And come back with a full court press.
absolutely. And that's from the hockey guy.
Right. So we will be back, and I'll shoot.
Trying to think of another one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of another one, but the time's running. Hear the music?
Yes.
Time's running.
The pressure's on.
The time's running out on him. The shot clock's running out. Be back.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildmon.
In the book of Psalms, there's one short verse that says, "Great is our Lord and abundant in power." Back in the second half of the 19th century, there was a soldier by the name of Lew Wallace. He was a general for the Union forces during the war between the states. Lew Wallace was also a lawyer and a statesman of some note. He served as governor of the New Mexico Territory from 1878 until 1881, and as a minister to Turkey from 1881 to 1885. Like many others, Lew Wallace found that as a grown man he had no religious beliefs. He often thought about this, especially when he was around some others who were strong in their belief. He even talked to Robert Ingersoll, the well-known atheist, for hours at one time. Ingersoll tried to prove to Wallace that the Bible was an unworthy book. Following a visit with some friends, Wallace spent some time in deep thought about what the friends had discussed: God, Christ, the Bible, etc. Somehow Wallace had felt left out in the conversation, and the reason was simple. He knew very little about the subjects. Following that conversation, Wallace made up his mind to write a book about what his friends had been talking about. The reason he decided to write a book was that he might make an in-depth study of the Bible. You see, he knew that unless he had some primary reason to study the Bible, that his study would be haphazard and would soon end. So for the next several years, Lew Wallace spent what time he could reading and studying the Bible. He read books related to the Bible, books that put light and understanding on the Bible. He also read books that shed light on the times during which certain events in the Bible took place. In fact, for more than 7 years, Lew Wallace worked on his book. He developed his theme around the life of Christ. Since he knew hardly anything about the Nazarene, he made Christ the secondary figure in the story, kept him in the background. It was while he was serving as governor of the New Mexico Territory that Wallace put the finishing touches on the book. It wasn't a pleasant time to write for the governor, especially since his life had been threatened by none other than Billy the Kid himself. Soon the book was finished. It was to become one of the most famous books ever written. Wallace named it Ben-Hur. It was translated into several languages. In 1927, it was made into a motion picture. In 1959, it was reshot, this time into one of the most spectacular motion pictures made up to that date. The book Ben-Hur still enjoys good sales even today. But the most important thing about this story is that Lew Wallace, the unbeliever, became Lew Wallace, the believer, because of the research on the book Ben-Hur. Many indeed are the paths the Nazarene uses to speak to us.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildmon, a production of the American Family Association.
For he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves. Colossians 1:13.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the radio program Today's Issues on American Family Radio. I'm Tim Wildmon with Ed Vitagliano and Fred Jackson, and as always, we thank you for listening to American Family Radio on this Monday, March the 31st. So what happens tomorrow, Ed?
Tomorrow's, you talking about the special elections?
Yeah, but other things that happen tomorrow.
Oh,
pranks.
Because it's April.
Yeah, some pranks.
April Fools.
People are gonna be fooled, even though everybody knows it's April 1. A lot of people are gonna fall for something.
You know what's strange about April Fool's Day is that sometimes weird things happen and people go, "Wait a second,
that's right.
Is this because it's April Fool's?"
Yeah, right.
But because weird stuff does sometimes happen. But
yeah, tomorrow's April 1st, so beware. All right, Fred, what's the next story?
Well, just before the break, we talked about the other place as far as voting tomorrow that's getting a lot of attention is the vote for the control of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. The Wisconsin Supreme Court has 7 positions. Tomorrow will determine whether the control of that court, it's 4-3 split, the control of the court goes to a conservative or to a liberal Democrat. To that point, the absentee ballots cast already is up 54% compared to 2023. Tens of millions of dollars are being spent in this. Elon Musk, for example, he is very involved. In fact, he was speaking at rallies there this weekend really the conservatives understand that if this court control falls to a Democrat, it is going to have an impact, for instance, on abortion laws. A liberal will take the state even further to the left on basically open abortions. But the reason this is important nationally is if it falls to a liberal, a Democrat, control of the court, the big thing is going to be redistricting.
Yes.
That's what conservatives, Republicans are very worried about, because there is a belief that that court will give in to the demands of the left there to redistrict, and it means Republicans could lose at least 2 seats in the House if a liberal gets that election. And that is why I think Musk himself has spent about $20 million in this.
Out of the $100 million that has been spent by both sides.
Out of the $100 million that's been spent. Musk was there this weekend, and there was a court battle over it. Musk, in order to try to generate even more interest in this, was giving away 2 checks, $1 million each, to 2 individual voters.
Too late?
No.
Get in on that?
Sorry, Tim.
He's already given them out.
He's already given them out.
Oh, okay.
The Democrats went to court saying this is illegal, but the courts did not take that up because these people were given, apparently, I'm told, the report is, they were given the $1 million checks after they voted.
So it's not buying votes.
He wasn't buying votes. But he is there just to, Musk has been there. Like I say, he was speaking at rallies on the weekend, just trying to charge people up to get out and
showed up at one of the rallies in a cheese hat.
Yes, he did.
Cheese heads.
Yes, he did. And anyway, so we're certainly going to be watching this tomorrow, and we'll be here to give you the results on Wednesday.
What do you think Elon Musk's motivation is in getting so involved in politics and government and being so public about it?
I think, now, of course, I don't know the man, but I think he really does love the country. I think he honestly sees the dangerous path we were on and still are in a lot of ways in terms of the woke agenda and the cultural Marxism. And I believe he understands correctly that this is a life and death struggle for the Republic, this era that we are in, that this must shift back to the Constitution and to morality. He is, by all indications, is not a Christian man, but he does understand that the wackiness and the moral subjectivity that's on the left is destructive. So that's what I think motivates him. Otherwise, the guy's a billionaire, owns multiple companies. He doesn't need this aggravation.
Right.
I mean, he's got plenty on his plate, but I think he understands that if this country goes down, then smart people like himself who can help humanity will be relegated to where all people go when a socialist government takes over, and that's the gulag. So
I agree. He has a, and I've heard him talk about this some. He has an understanding that the Democrat Party, as it exists today, of far left socialistic mentality controlling it, that they are a threat to the free enterprise system, to freedom,
right.
to liberty in many ways, and ingenuity will be threatened. And so that's why he feels strongly about this.
Yes.
And he can make a case for it. I've heard him talk about it. And so that's the what do you guys make associated with this? Have you guys been seeing all these videos of these Tesla cars being vandalized around the country?
Yep.
Yeah. By these unhinged lefties?
Yeah.
One of them last night was it was a guy on a four-wheeler, and he looks like to me he weighs 400 pounds, and he just gets his four-wheeler and he just revs it up and he slams it into a Tesla car. I don't know, but anyway, trying to make a dent in the. I guess he did. I didn't see the effects of it. But it was like, this guy's insane. He could hurt himself, seriously hurt himself, if he goes flying off that four-wheeler. And this woman, you saw her interviewed, right?
Oh, yeah.
This woman who owned it comes out and discovers her car's been vandalized. And anyway, go ahead.
She's not necessarily I saw her interviewed on the weekend. She's not necessarily an Elon Musk fan or votes Republican. She just happened to own a Tesla vehicle.
Right.
She was in shopping.
Right.
And this guy is ramming the back of her Tesla. Over $1,000 damage this guy caused.
Right.
But now he got arrested, though, right?
He got arrested, and our Attorney General is saying she's going to go after these people, especially these Tesla dealerships. They are being bombed. The cars in the lot are being bombed with Molotov cocktails. It's nuts.
Well, there's a Tesla takedown protest, and I'm not sure when this happens. Maybe it's today. But organizers are naming it. This is a story from San Francisco, ABC News there.
It was Saturday.
It was Saturday?
Yeah.
Okay. So they had a one-day Tesla takedown national protest. They called it the biggest day of action yet. And the protests are going on outside Tesla showrooms, including multiple in the Bay Area. So that's the San Francisco ABC affiliate story that I'm reading. So now the protest, that's one thing. Okay, the vandalism and the firebombing, that could be absolutely considered as domestic terrorism. However, the point I wanted to make is this is being organized by someone.
Oh, yes.
Who's organizing this? I'm not trying to get conspiracy-minded here, but somebody's organizing this, and you have to ask why. Why Tesla? It's obviously connected to Elon Musk and DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. What is it that they do not like about that? I guess it's just the ever-expanding state and the administrative state.
You think it's organized?
Well, this says.
Oh no, that is.
Yes.
Yeah. You're talking about this day of protest or whatever.
Right.
What do they call it? Take down
Tesla takedown.
Global Day of Action, and it's Tesla dealerships in Europe too.
Yeah,
it's not just the United States.
Yes, but these individual attacks, which are almost daily, that are videotaped against vandalizing Tesla automobiles, which the people have nothing to do with. All they do on a car,
Right.
they may but these unhinged lefties just can't help themselves. They've got to just ram a Tesla or key one. One fellow the other day, they caught him at a resort somewhere in New England, I think it was, and he was keying the Tesla car, and they caught him on videotape. And they said, "Hey, do you know how this?" The police said, "Do you know how this happened? This keying incident over here?" And he said, "No, I don't know how that happened."
And it was him?
It was him. They said, "Well, we got you on videotape." So,
well, yeah, these Teslas all have motion sensitive video cameras. When someone approaches a Tesla, the video kicks on. That's why they're all being videotaped doing this. Now, these individuals, I see your point with the point you were making. This isn't part of any organized effort. These are just crazies.
Yeah.
I've seen videos, one with a woman with a kid in the back, and this man, full-grown man, drives up next to her at a stoplight, starts yelling at her. I didn't turn the sound on because I don't want to hear this guy swearing. I'm sure he was. And then as she drives away, when the light turns, he keeps following her and catching up to her just to scream at her. These people are unhinged.
As if she has something to do with Elon Musk or what's happening in Washington, D.C. or anything like that.
And this guy pulled out a gun in this one video I saw. Pointed a gun. It was in the holster still, but he pointed a gun, and I just thought, these people they're crazies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, you're listening to today's issues on American Family Radio. Next story.
Well, it is related to what we're talking about. There was a bombing this weekend at the headquarters, the Republican headquarters in New Mexico. You may have seen the pictures of this. The front door is just blown apart. Now, what I want to play for you first is a speech from a Democrat member of Congress from New Mexico, Teresa Leger Fernandez. What we're going to hear is a speech she gave recently at a rally on how to fight Elon Musk, including to agitate. It's one of the words she used, agitate. All right? So let's have a listen to what she had to say. Cut number 3.
To respond, because people keep asking about me, what do we do? What are you doing? What more can you do? And we have a 3-pronged project. Legislate, litigate, agitate. And you guys are part of the agitate part. So don't feel like we are hopeless or helpless. When we express our outrage, and it is universal, they are forced to put it back.
All right. Then we have the bombing. This occurred before that bombing at the Republican New Mexico headquarters. The New Mexico County Commissioner, Amy Barella, was interviewed on Fox this morning about this. This is how she responded to this act of violence. Cut number 4.
Well, I believe that she changed her statement as soon as I came out to the media and was calling her out on those statements. I mean, you're holding a town hall to discuss about the love of the community, and you use the words agitate, I think is contradictory. The left calling out, and just instead of calling out for violence and the destruction of the United States and across New Mexico, how about we come to the table and work together and fix the crime problems in New Mexico instead?
Yeah, what she's referring to there is that Congresswoman Fernandez, after the bombing, said, I didn't mean anything violence by when I used the term agitate. It had nothing to do, and I certainly condemn this kind of activity. But it's just a demonstration of what is going on out there. I think, Tim, you asked the question, why are people doing these things? Why are people attacking Tesla dealerships? It is just that they hate conservative values. They hate Donald Trump so much that they are willing to do these things. They want disruption. They want chaos because they believe that will help them win the next election.
And I'll tell you something else. It's becoming clear to me that the left has been the primary beneficiary of all this money flowing out of D.C. It goes to leftist groups.
Yep.
It goes to
almost
people
exclusively.
Yes. And listen, I know there are people who need federal assistance in terms of welfare and the various facets of that. There are people who need that. But there are a lot of people who are getting money for nothing. Social Security numbers of children. We've all done these stories where they were getting loans during COVID. All this money flowing out, and there are people who don't want to see that gravy train stopped. I've been watching videos on X of these young people posting videos. Who's going to pay for my college now? Who's going to pay for this? Who's going to pay for that? And they are angry at Elon Musk because Doge is finding the waste of government money that's being spent, and they're primarily the beneficiaries of it. And listen, we either find out now where government waste is going on, or we wait for the country to go bankrupt.
Yeah.
And then everybody's cut off. And so this is the kind of pain that we see being visited on people who have been getting money from the government for free, air quotes here, because it's coming out of tax dollars. But I think that's what's driving some of this rage too.
No doubt about it. It's just, and what, remember the left described Elon Musk, the Doge team, Elon Musk and his kids. Well, last week, Brett Baer at Fox interviewed Elon Musk with his team. They are not kids. They are CEOs of companies.
Right.
They know businesses. They know where waste is. And what they're finding is scary. Here's what's scary. It's been going on for years. It was going on under Republican presidents. And the unbelievable, the huge number of, for instance, people collecting Social Security who, if you look at their records of their birth dates, are 120, 130, 140 years old.
Right.
Obviously, there's fraud going on there. And other things. I mean, they're going to look at the Pentagon. Today, I think it is, they're visiting the CIA, the Doge team, to see if there's waste there. And it really gets me. They talk about, you hear Democrats responding. They say, look, these poor veterans of Veteran Affairs are losing their jobs. And this agency over here, all these thousands of people losing their jobs. These same Democrats never complained when Joe Biden shut down the Keystone Pipeline.
Right.
And 10,000 pipeline workers were thrown out of work. These same Democrats didn't complain when Joe Biden put 8,000 members of our military out of work because they wouldn't take a shot. So they're not really concerned about these people.
Right. This is a convenient instrument to try to beat the Trump administration with. This is not a principled stand.
No, not at all.
When you're 120 years old, I don't even think you know whether or not the Social Security check is, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Is made it to your mailbox or not when you're 120.
Just as long as I get my tapioca, I'm good to go.
What is that, like a yogurt or something?
No, tapioca, it's pudding.
Oh,
if I'm 120 years old, that's almost double what I am now. That's all I have teeth for. Is pudding. That's what I'm saying. Okay, I'm not trying to insult that. I don't think any of our listeners are 120 years old.
I think everybody understands that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all my stomach can take.
I understand.
I can't take spicy spaghetti sauce anymore. No, I just need my tapioca.
You get past 100. Huh? All right, next story, Fred.
By the way, I am getting to the age where that kind of comment is not as funny as it used to be.
Right. There's some truth there.
Yeah, truth hurts.
Truth hurts.
All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right. A busy week. Tomorrow we have these special elections, the Wisconsin Supreme Court election. But on Wednesday is Trump's what he's calling Liberation Day. That's when these tariffs begin to kick in. And there's a lot of talk about the ramifications of all of that. Here's what the President Trump had to say himself about these tariffs. And he's talking about perhaps there's room for kinder tariffs. Cut number 10.
The tariffs will be far more generous than those countries were to us, meaning they will be kinder than those countries were to the United States of America over the decades.
Kinder tariffs.
Even if they're slapped tariffs on.
Gentler, kinder tariffs.
Yes.
That's what George Bush did, right?
Kinder, gentler.
Gentler America.
Listen, he is right. that some of these tariffs on certain products for United States products going to other countries are 200 and something %. I mean, it's been crazy what the U.S. has put up with over the years, and President Trump is trying to level the playing field some. And man, the pushback has been tremendous from some of these other countries. And I'll give it to Trump. This man has a backbone of solid steel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he doesn't flinch. He doesn't waver when he gets some blowback. Like a lot of politicians, they wither under the winds of complaint and criticism, but not this guy. This guy is he's just got a backbone of solid steel. I've really never seen anything like it. He is so focused and so determined. This is what he wants to do. I'm going to be honest. I think he's only half joking about a third term. I do think he is mischievous, and he's probably partially trolling. But I think he realizes how much time it's going to take to set America back on the right course, and he probably knows 4 years isn't enough. At some point, he's going to have to turn it over to J.D. Vance or someone else to carry on this kind of MAGA revolution. But he's an extraordinary individual, and that's all I'll say about that, because he just won't blink.
No,
I thought he would have blinked. I'll be honest. I thought he would have blinked on some of this tariff language, but he's going ahead with it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people aren't aware of, and you alluded to it a minute ago, Ed, of how this country has succumbed to the tariffs from other countries, tariffs that Canadians have put on the Americans, trying to ship, whether it's milk or other products, into Canada because they want to protect their industry.
Right.
What Trump is just basically saying, he's talked a lot about reciprocal tariffs. Whatever you're doing to us, we're going to do to you.
Yeah.
But the media is only doing the cry of the other side in all of this. You know, you talk about Donald Trump, it's absolutely amazing, everything that's going on, and he's facing this judicial challenges to everything that he wants to do. And to that end, the Republicans are about to introduce a bill, probably this week, to try to restrict these rogue federal judges, cut number 5.
Well, we're going to use every lever we have in the legislative branch. We can do legislation. We have a bill that passed out of the committee 3 weeks ago, which says when one of these judges, district judges, trial judges, issues an injunction, it doesn't apply nationwide. It'll apply only to the parties in that case in that respective jurisdiction.
Yeah, and that's, well, a lot of people are talking about that. And if you care about justice, a lot of people are saying these federal district judges have far too much power. And, of course, what's happened is the Democrats, and we've talked about this before, simply go shopping. The ACLU, right. The Democrats, they just go shopping from a judge that was appointed by
Obama,
Barack Obama, or by Biden, or by Bill Clinton.
Well, I think something that a lot of Americans don't understand is that the federal court system that we have right now, with district judges, appellate judges, the next level up, and then the Supreme Court, that was created by Congress. Mm-hmm. The Constitution gives Congress the authority to create the federal court system. And who was this, by the way, that we just heard?
Jim Jordan.
Jim Jordan, okay. What he is suggesting is that Congress rein in these district judges according to its constitutional power. Now, that seems like it would have to be a bill that would have to pass both houses of Congress. The president would certainly sign it. And I'm not sure it probably would be subjected to a filibuster in the Senate and probably wouldn't pass. But it is the kind of thing that Congress can do.
Yeah.
And they say, and so the law would then be a federal district judge can rule, and it applies, an injunction only applies in his or her district, not nationwide. Because to your point, Fred, you have these federal district court judges who are stopping what the executive branch is doing with a nationwide injunction.
Mm-hmm.
And that cannot be what Congress originally intended.
No, of course, a lot of these cases now are going to go up to the Supreme Court, United States Supreme Court. A lot of people are saying, if the Supreme Court justices don't stop these federal district judges, the federal district judges then are going to be perceived by the people. They're running the country all of a sudden.
Yes.
These unelected judges.
They have the power of the Supreme Court.
Yes.
To stop these kind of things. I certainly hope John Roberts and the Supreme Court will shut this down. Otherwise, it is going to create a constitutional crisis in our country.
All right. Well, man, that's just the world spinning.
Yes.
And things are moving fast. And I agree with you. We've talked about this before, but the energy and stamina of President Trump is unlike anything I've ever seen from a 78-year-old man. He's almost 79 years old.
And he wants another 4 years, joking or not.
Yeah. He said he likes to work.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we will see what happens. J.D. Vance would be the heir apparent.
Yeah.
Right there. I don't think J.D. Vance would run just to say, oh, yeah, here are the keys back to the White House.
Right.
After I ran for president, and I won if he were to win. But we'll see what happens. As President Trump did say there, that's a long way away. We were just into his first administration. Excuse me. The first months of his second administration. And, all right, when is Easter, by the way? Easter coming up?
The 18th?
A week from this Friday or 2 weeks
April?
from this Friday is Good Friday.
April, you talking about 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah.
Easter is the 20th of April.
Okay. And then the Eastern Church, they said they got to be different.
I think this year, they both Western
Same
and
time?
Eastern, I think the same Sunday.
Okay.
I think
All
that's
right.
what somebody told me that, so.
All right, we'll be back momentarily with more of today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
How do you choose to stay informed? Sure, you can find all kinds of sources for information and commentary, but when you want them from a Christian perspective, turn to The Stand. Whether you choose to read the online blog or get the print version delivered to your mailbox, you can rest assured you'll receive factual news and biblically sound commentary. Find out more today at afa.net/The Stand.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. President Trump is set to roll out a major wave of tariffs. Everett Lawrence has more from the White House.
This is a big week for the economy here, especially since we got a hotter than expected inflation read at the end of last week, and that has concerned a lot of the markets. Now, the tariffs have a possibility of putting a one-time price increase on certain goods. The president, though, trying to manage that expectation and shock to the system.
The tariffs will be far more generous than those countries were to us, meaning they will be kinder than those countries were to the United States.
The signal tariffs might not be actually reciprocal. The administration estimates that Trump tariffs will bring in $600 billion in the first year to the Treasury General Fund.
Florida voters tomorrow will decide who fills 2 vacant congressional seats in what are expected to be tight races.
Tomorrow is Election Day for 2 U.S. House seats left vacant by Republicans Michael Waltz, who joined the new Trump administration as National Security Advisor, and Matt Gaetz, President Trump's first choice to be Attorney General, who withdrew in the midst of an ethics investigation. Democrats are hopeful they can flip the seats. Randy Fine is the Republican running in Waltz's old district.
It's the crux of our campaign, to make people understand that the Trump agenda is on the line.
Speaking on Fox and Friends, the Republican majority in the House would be thinner if they were to lose either or both seats. 2 other seats left vacant by Democrats who died this month will be filled later this year. In Miami, Eben Brown, Fox News.
President Trump says stories about a leak of a signal chat about airstrikes in Yemen are old and boring. Jared Halpern has more from the White House.
President Trump says the never-ending story over Signal is a radical left witch hunt. Writing on social media, the focus should be on how successful the attack was. Last week, The Atlantic magazine published messages from a group chat on Signal that inadvertently included a journalist. In it, the defense secretary disclosed the timing and sequence of airstrikes hitting Houthi targets in Yemen. Administration officials insist no classified information was shared. President Trump says the story and narrative is so old and boring, but only used because of the most successful first 100 days for a president in history.
Senate Republicans crafting a budget proposal as they seek to implement President Trump's agenda. Kansas Senator Roger Marshall explains the details of the negotiations.
I think that we can give President Trump one big, beautiful bill, make our budget line up closer with what the House did. And the emphasis to us, the changes we want to make, as you already stated, we want these Trump tax cuts to be permanent. You talk about running a business or running a family. It's nice to know, what the next 20 years look like, not the next 6 or 8 years.
The head of a Messianic Jewish ministry is skeptical about the recent anti-Hamas protests by Palestinians.
As we have reported on AFN, in a rare display of public anger against the terrorist group, thousands of Palestinians in war-torn Gaza took to the streets and protested against Hamas, calling for an end to the 17 months of deadly fighting with Israel that has made living in Gaza a nightmare. They shouted, "Out, out, out, Hamas, get out." Jan Markell is founder and director of Olive Tree Ministries and host of Understanding the Times on American Family Radio.
My hunch is it's pretty phony. Remember, some of these same people were a part of the October 7th invasion into Israel, murdering Israelis, some of the same people. So you can bet they just would like their cities back from these terrorist thugs, but the problem is they agree with them. Their sentiment is the same as Hamas, and that is we have to destroy every single Israeli. So I think people need to look on this really skeptically.
And Markell says just because these protesters oppose Hamas, it would not be a good idea for them to repopulate or revitalize Gaza City built by Donald Trump.
Never. What's in their DNA is destroy Israel. That's all they know. That's all they will ever know. Maybe they want to get rid of the terrorists, but then they're going to turn around and be terrorists. You cannot trust these people. You cannot. Their DNA is to kill. Sorry.
I'm Chad, groaning.
And the overall death toll has passed 1,700 in the massive earthquake in Myanmar. More news online at afn.net. And download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty P.
In Denver, Colorado, Jamie Sanchez obeyed the Lord's call and opened the Drip Cafe to create jobs to help unhoused people get back on their feet. Of course, the LGBTQ community began persecuting him for his Christian beliefs. His inspiring story of standing boldly for God's truth in the face of great opposition is part of our Impact series, and we'll send you the DVD as our thanks for your gift to AFA. Visit afa.net/spiritual war. afa.net/spiritual war.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildmon, president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the last 25 minutes of the show today. Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, and now Steve Paisley Jordahl joins us. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, everybody.
What did you do this weekend, Steve? Anything
My wife
special?
and I went on Friday to Birmingham, Alabama, and we saw a traveling version of a touring version of Les Miserables, the Broadway musical. And I mean to tell you that is my favorite Broadway musical. I saw it the first time I ever saw it. It was like 1997 or 98 on Broadway in New York, and it floored me. And this Friday, no less inspiring. This was such a great story.
You know what?
Good music.
I will also say this. People have become so used to seeing things on screens.
Uh-huh.
About 25, 30 years ago, some friends of ours took us to see in Jackson. So it was before I came here. So it was probably 32 years ago here at AFA. And we went to see a play in Jackson. Dinner Theater.
Jackson, Mississippi.
Jackson, Mississippi. And, man, that was fun. When you see, if it's done well and you have good actors and, good, producers and set designers, going to see a play, and I'm not saying that's even in the same league of what you're talking about, it is such a totally different experience. It is so much fun.
Oh,
to go see something like that that's not on a screen.
And this is fun, but the sets, they're like 3-story sets that appear out of nowhere. They just slide on, and all of a sudden you're in a town square, and they slide on another one. You're in the backyard of another house, and I mean, it's just like
so. It's amazing. It's a Broadway play. That's on in New York City.
It's not on in New York City anymore. What they do is they usually
traveling.
Yeah, what the producers do is they do their New York City stint for as long as it run, and this one ran forever. And then they put a touring cast and a version together, and they go around and do. This was a huge theater in Birmingham.
Was this the play about the French Revolution?
It was set in the French Revolution, yes. It was about a prison convict. It's a play about justice versus grace.
Grace, yeah.
And the star or the hero of this thing is a prisoner who, during the French Revolution, he got released from prison but given a yellow slip, which means he's a convict and he'll always be in conflict. He was under the law, and nothing is going to give him out of the law.
Right.
And he goes to he's wandering around. He goes to get something to eat. He could barely eat at a priest's house. And in the middle of the night, he gets up and he steals the silverware, and he walks out. Well, the police catch this guy, which is obviously a convict with a bunch of silverware, and they think they know where he got him. They bring him back to the priest's house, and the priest says, "Oh, Mr. Policeman, don't worry. It's okay. Jean Valjean, how did you leave without taking the best things?" And he hands him 2 candlesticks. The police say, "Okay, go away." And he says, "With this action, I have bought your soul for God." And then we see down there he takes care of a young girl. He makes right with a woman that he kicked out of. He becomes the mayor of Big Town. He makes good and becomes a mayor and is all altruistic, trying to do good things. It's just a phenomenal story. Just a huge.
What's the name of it again?
Les Miserables. It's Victor Hugo. The novel is just as good, and the movie is pretty good too.
Yeah, if an average American sees what you've described on a marquee, how is he or she going to say it?
Les Miserables.
That's what I called it all these years.
That's exactly.
Now,
well, a parking attendant said, "What are you guys doing? Are you guys going to Les Miserables?"
Yes, Les Miserables.
No, we're going to more.
Are you serious? That's what he said?
Yeah. No, actually, we're going to more Miserables.
Yeah, right.
That's right down the street.
Nicely played.
Such a redemptive story.
All right, next, what's your first?
All right. I'm going to take us to London, England, where I'm going to there's a newscaster who has a story this is a British newscaster out of the British press, and I'm not even going to set it up. I'm just going to let this newscaster tell you the story. Cut 15.
A toddler was suspended from a nursery after they were accused of being transphobic or homophobic. I just cannot believe this. The Department of Education data revealed the child is either 3 or 4 years old. A D.of.E., a Department of Education spokesman, said all pupils and staff should feel safe. I can't believe I'm reading this. Should feel safe and protected at school and should never face violence or abuse. The Education Secretary has been clear that she expects school leaders to enforce good behaviour, and we are committed to a comprehensive programme of behaviour to support all schools.
The UK is hitting crazy levels.
They're getting there, huh?
In Ireland, what's the Conor McGregor? It was
the MMA guy.
MMA guy.
Yeah.
I think he's trying to run for mayor of a city in
Dublin
Ireland.
or something.
Maybe it's Dublin, and Parliament is on the verge of declaring his candidacy, going to revoke his ability to run because of his views on immigration. Because Conor McGregor is about
Right. He's
legal
the
immigration.
He's the Donald Trump of,
Yeah.
of Ireland.
And so and it looks like Parliament's on the verge of saying, no, you can't even run for mayor because your views are illegitimate views. And then a toddler kicked out of nursery after being accused of being transphobic.
I don't know what the toddler could have done that was possibly transphobic. But along the same lines, the number one conservative populist candidate in the French country, Marie Le Pen, a court has sentenced her to for 2 years, and let's see, I got the and she's fined, and she's gonna be in jail for 2 years. And it's another one of those lawfare things like they did with Donald Trump. They concocted some charges.
Right.
I'm gonna be talking with Jenna Ellis about this in a little after.
Listen, if Donald Trump had not won in 2024, we'd be heading towards this.
Yeah.
What we're talking about. And I guess Europe is going to have to burn before they wake up, because I'm seeing pictures, London, Paris. I saw photographs over the weekend in Italy of Muslims taking up entire streets and marketplaces and doing their prayers.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to end very badly for Europe, with that continent being burned to the ground, and there's going to be civil war, and it's a disaster waiting to happen.
Y'all know that I spent some time with my parents on the mission field and
Madagascar.
Madagascar, and we spent a year in France learning French, and I was about 9 years old, but I still picked up on the conversations they were having. And even in 1969, the story was that the church in Europe was gone. It was asleep. It was irrelevant. And all this time, I don't think it's ever really come out of it. And to your point about Muslims in England, next story. Did any of you guys, Brent, maybe you have daughters? Did any of you go down the trail of using these American Girl dolls? You know what that is?
Yes, I do. And I think my daughter had one. I think my granddaughter has a couple.
Basically,
they're very popular.
They were, or maybe they still are. Basically, they're little dolls, and they come with a storybook, and there's one from the Revolution, and there's one from different periods
my
of time.
my daughter, who's now in her mid-30s,
Right.
she had them back in.
Right.
Yeah.
Very popular, tea sets, the whole bit.
Right.
Well, I want you to hear the latest from American Girls doll, cut 14.
All sorts of foods during Eid al-Fitr. Eid Mubarak to you and yours. Today, I'm gonna make some baklava to celebrate Eid al-Fitr. Eid al-Fitr is a feast that's celebrated by Muslims worldwide. It celebrates the end of Ramadan, when we fast for a month from dawn to sunset. The feast starts at sunset on the night when we first see the crescent moon. We eat all sorts of foods during Eid al-Fitr, but baklava is my favorite. Muslims in different countries each have their own traditions. Many dress in new clothes to represent renewal. Others decorate their houses with lanterns. And gifts are given to children by their relatives. It's ready. Happy Eid al-Fitr. Ooh, too soon. Still hot. Eid Mubarak
Okay,
to
you can
you
stop
and
it.
yours.
I didn't trim that well. But American Girl teaching our young girls how to celebrate Ramadan. I looked. I could not find a single American Girl doll whose story revolved around Christmas or Easter.
Look, I try to bend over backwards to respect all religions. And by that, I mean the fact that people do believe different things about God. Okay? I don't respect their actual views because I'm a Christian. And as a Christian, I would view Islam as a false religion, just like Hinduism, and they look at Christianity the same way, right? But this is I don't understand the mindset of members of the West, people of the West, from a Christian heritage. I do not understand why they are bending over backwards to welcome and support a religion that wants to overthrow the very values and democratic and Republican systems that undergird Western civilization. I
tell you what they're going to
understand
say.
it.
They're going to say not all Muslims are like that.
But Islam is.
I'll tell you what the real
Islam
reason is,
teaches
though.
it. Huh?
I'll tell you 2 real reasons. That's what they're going to say. You're right, Tim. The real reasons are, number one, they think the West is corrupt and they want to destroy the West. This is what the whole left part of the Democrat Party is doing. They want socialism. They want to tear down. You took like the Antifa people and everything. They want to tear it down and then rebuild it in a different image.
Yeah.
The other reason that it works is because they're demonic.
Yeah. Yes. We're going to get into different teachings of religion right now, which Christianity teaches false religions are demonic. Now, as far as the American Girl company is concerned, I don't know if they released a statement on this. My guess is they're just sort of into PC and political correctness, and they're wanting to demonstrate that by having this
Virtue signal.
Yeah, virtue signaling for the Muslims and their holiday of Ramadan. But yeah, the American Girl, I don't know if they still are, but they were hugely popular there for about 20 years. They're dolls, is what they are. They're dolls, and
they've crafted a narrative around each doll, which the child learns about history or whatever. So
Islam and Islamic leaders, and to your point, Tim, yes, probably most Muslims don't buy into what these Muslim leaders are teaching. Okay, but
or what the religion itself technically or legalistically,
yes,
the right word,
but
letter of the law teaches. Yeah.
Yes, but Muslim leaders they are planning to and are using the freedom of religion that exists in Western countries to eventually lead to a takeover of the political system, and then freedom of religion will disappear. That is the plan out of their own mouths. Islamic leaders worldwide, that is their plan. They are using the freedoms granted in the West to eventually get rid of religious freedom when they politically take over.
Unless something drastically changes, Europe will fall to Islam in the next 50 years. Maybe sooner.
Yes.
Just by the sheer numbers, because the Muslims from North Africa and the Middle East have immigrated into European countries. I've mentioned this before. Europeans are not having children. Native Europeans I'm talking about are not having children. Their birth rate is like 1, not even replacement.
No.
And so the Muslims, on the other hand, are having 4, 5, 6 kids. Well, how long does that take you?
Right.
You do that math. How long is that?
Generations. That's it. Couple generations.
Well, the Muslims are already 10% of France. 10% of France are Muslims. You get to 20, 25, 30, they will overthrow the potentially. Now, it would depend on whether those Muslims are what you would call fundamentalist or whether they're secularist. In other words, they don't really follow the Islamic religion, and they like European Western values. Yeah. Go ahead.
The mayor of London is Muslim.
Right.
And he got there because London has a huge Muslim population.
Yeah,
so
and
they
it's growing.
didn't overthrow anything except with the vote. This is a known strategy of the Muslim faith, and it's called jihad. Not all jihad is violent. This is the jihad by population, like by family. You take over a country with numbers, and they don't have to necessarily blow things up if they elect the right people. And then we're seeing in Minnesota, other places, these no-go zones where they're actually living under Sharia law.
Yeah, but why is the West? Why are so many leaders in the West fooled by this? That's what I don't understand. Is it just? It's hard for me to put it into words. Why don't they see the danger?
Because, did I interrupt you?
No, that's the question.
Because they have a greater fear of being called a racist or an Islamophobe than they do of acknowledging and looking truthfully at what the teaching is of Islam is with respect to taking over regions or areas or other lands. I mean,
that has to be
They
has to be the answer.
They would say, "Oh, you guys are overstating it." They're not going to take over. They want to integrate. Is that the right word? Integrate into our society and be a part of who we are. Western society. We're a democracy. We're a made up of different faiths. So they wouldn't acknowledge the fundamental the history of Islam,
right,
or the teachings of Islam. They wouldn't acknowledge that as it being a problem or incompatible with Western values.
There is ample evidence that Muslims, when they move into a country, are not interested in assimilation.
Right. It's just frightening.
No,
I
but
feel bad for Europe because disaster. We have our own disasters looming, but nothing like what's looming for Europe.
But the question that this is a sociological. This is a
sociological.
Yeah, that. It's that classroom discussion. Yeah. Okay, but it does merit discussion because it is happening at a very fast rate, especially in Europe. And I would say, do most of the people who are immigrating to Europe, which would be considered the Christian land, I know historically,
right?
Okay, I know that Europe is not Christian any longer to a large extent in terms of active people participating in church and things of that nature. But the history of Europe is Christian. If you were to ask anybody, what is the history? But my question would be: are these immigrants who are coming from the Middle East and coming from North Africa in particular into Europe, are they trying to escape oppression and poverty themselves caused by turmoil or religious factions fighting each other, and they really do want to just, they're trying to escape so that they can live in peace, or they can have the chance of prosperity, or are they coming to take over the land eventually?
I think
and make it like the Middle East and make it like North Africa.
I'd say just initially it's probably 80-20, 80% wanting to come to escape the turmoil,
right?
20% coming because they're on jihad. But once that 80% gets set up in their cities, and I forget, I think it's a half dozen cities in the UK, the mayors are Muslim. Okay?
Yeah.
And so once they get established, they go, you know what? We're Muslims, and we're going to do what Muslims do. And
now we can make Christian worship illegal.
Yes, and they're going to hear imams preaching in mosques who are saying, if you're going to be a true Muslim,
right,
you've got to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And everybody's going to be hearing the calls to prayer from
my goodness.
Yeah.
It's really I'm just saying, it's just stunning. I know we need to move on. It's just stunning that so many Christians fought to keep Europe free from invasion by armies and navies from Muslim leaders, and now they're just opening the doors, letting them walk in.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
You're listening to today's issues on American Family Radio. Thanks for listening to AFR. Tim, Ed, and Steve. Go ahead, Steve.
Let's do something more positive, shall we?
Okay.
Amen.
All right. I want to introduce you to Lex Rennick and
Lex
Rennick and her husband Nick Rennick.
He owes me $7.
Well,
wasn't he the villain in the Superman?
He was Lex
Luthor.
Lex Rennick. So Lex was born a woman, and she lived as a transgender. She decided she was transgender, so she lived like a man for 14 years. During that time, she met Nick, who was a man identifying as gay.
This does get confusing.
It does.
Stick with
so
us.
a woman transgender pretending to be a man marries a gay man pretending to be a gay man. And for 14 years, they lived this life. And then they found Christ. And I want to let you hear from Lex. This is a story that this is a great story, and we listen to. You got it? Cut whatever it is.
Ideology away from our children. I think that it's a very dangerous topic to expose our kids to this. Well, hi, my name's Lex Rennick. I'm an influencer online, and I get the privilege and honor of traveling and sharing the good news of Jesus and talking about my testimony from transgender to transformed. As a parent, my husband and I have realized that you need to be the one to start the conversation. Don't let the world start the conversation, because the world's going to tell them, opposite of what the word of God says. And ultimately that's really scary, even for a parent to hear, like, if you don't do this, your kid's gonna have suicidal thoughts, etc. It is so important that as a parent, instead of running from this conversation, because even sometimes the church runs from the conversation, start it with biblical grace and biblical truth, that like God doesn't make a mistake, and he loves his children, and he loves us enough not to create us to be put into bondage or to be put in these boxes.
Wow.
Change
how awesome.
Change is possible. You can the Holy Spirit can change any life, bring from death to life.
Yeah, in his image, our video, our movie, our documentary fits in right with what she's talking about here.
Does indeed.
In his image.movie is
Yes.
where to go watch it.
Yeah, and you can watch it for free, folks.
Yeah.
It's very powerful, very compassionate. And what Lex Rennick was saying, what she has said, is that she was told that because she said, I wish someone had just told me it was okay to be a tomboy. But because I was a tomboy, they told me I was really a boy. And she said that ideology influenced her as a little kid. And she said that needs to stop. You need to stop pushing kids to think they are the opposite of what their bodies are, and make room for a girl to like to play football if she wants, or a boy to like to play the piano instead of playing football, instead of telling them they're in the wrong body.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, Ed.
Amen.
Thanks, Steve.
My pleasure.
Thanks to Fred Jackson and Brent Creeley, our producer. And thank you for listening to American Family Radio. We hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Hello, this is Tim Wildmon, president of American Family Association and American Family Radio. Hey, we've got some very